that Catherine had, because nowhere as near as advanced as she is. Um, and really, I think Catherine did a great job of providing the basic information that's probably not a lot different for us at a landfill as it is with her, facilities there. Um, and one of the notes I took while she was talking was, our need to probably start tracking these fires more readily, so that more closely, so we can provide the same information that she's looking at in terms of are they more prevalent, and if so, how much more prevalent? I can tell you anecdotally, they are. We're seeing a lot more fires than we did in the past. I've been doing this here for 20 years now. Fortunately, most of the fires that we experience are small. Our crew is able to handle them quickly, and they don't become an issue. And those are the ones that we usually detect while we're operating during the day. The ones that become a problem are the ones that flare up at 2 a.m. and their phone rings, and we have a much bigger problem on my hands. So great point. We really do need to start tracking those so we can see, what efforts we're making, if whether or not they're having an impact or not, hopefully positively. So, in terms of a landfill, the risk or the cause of the fires are pretty similar in the terms of, most of the waste delivered to us is coming in some sort of truck, whether it's a packer truck or a roll-off truck. We then spread that waste with a bulldozer, and we run over it with a landfill compactor. So again, plenty of opportunity to damage these batteries in transit. And I've been saying this, right along in terms of batteries. We're talking about two facilities today, the landfill and the waste energy incinerator, or the MRRA. But this could this is likely happen and is happening in the back of garbage trucks. It's happening probably or potentially in people's garages. As Catherine noted, these things are in our homes, and they're kind of a ticking time bomb. So, but in terms of for the landfill, the potential damage there, really, the potential concern primarily is that a fire damages some of our equipment or the systems at the landfill, whether that be landfill gas extraction systems. If a fire occurred when we first start filling a cell, there's that risk that we could somehow damage our liner system, which would be hugely impactful. Fortunately, that's not happened here with our experience, but mostly what we're dealing with here is just a major disruption in operations. Nobody plans on coming to work in the morning saying, "Yeah, we're going to fight a fire today." We've had experiences where we've had to close for part of a day because, we're dealing with a fire, and that's not only disruptive to us, but it's disruptive, obviously, to our haulers that we're servicing. The other is, and we've had some pretty extensive discussions with our local fire departments. A fire at a landfill requires a pretty significant response from our local fire departments. You've got multiple trucks, a lot of crew members spending a lot of time, because some of these can be pretty stubborn. As Catherine mentioned, you have to move a lot of trash to get to that source of that fire. And these don't always necessarily happen, an hour after you place or while you're placing this waste. This could happen days. We had one fire, and we can't always, one thing I should note is we can't always determine, or often we can't determine, what the cause of the fire is, because we're moving so much waste trying to get to it that to try to find a single battery is difficult. But I can say, when we aren't able to determine what causes the fire, it's been a battery. If we can get to the point where it's small enough and we can investigate it, and before we do major, trash moving, we're going to find a laptop, a cell phone, some sort of battery that's causing that fire. We had one fire that took us a week to extinguish, and that required daily presence from the fire department, renting heavy equipment, large excavators, and moving tons and tons of trash to get to it. So, you know, the local fire departments are already, their resources are already stretched thin, and to have that kind of dedication to a fire at the landfill is just, you know, we'd prefer to avoid it. One of the things that Catherine mentioned was a different type of extinguishing agent, and we use water because that's what works. In the past, I will say that when we had a landfill fire, the fire departments typically use firefighting foam. And we all know, or I think a lot of us know, the concerns with using firefighting foam is the PFAS. And at least in the past, the PFAS contamination in that foam. So that used to be our go-to firefighting agent. It is no longer. Now it's water. For a landfill, water equals leachate. So if we put water in the landfill, eventually it's going to come out as leachate that then we need to treat, and there's a cost associated with that. So really what I wanted to do was just echo. I thought Catherine did a great job. This is a problem. It's becoming a bigger problem. I think there is, and I'm anxious to hear from the Call to Recycle folks, you know, there is a program in place to deal with these batteries, but at least in our part of the state, there aren't a lot of options for drop-off, and most folks do not know about it. So I think it really is going to require some to make it more convenient and for folks to be more aware of what the options are for, you know, I can go to folks and say, please don't put these batteries in your trash. And then the next question becomes, okay, what do you want me to do with it? And we need to have an answer that is, you know, really easy and really convenient and hopefully free, and or better, you know, some sort of rebate program that would incentivize folks to do that. And I think that with that, we can hopefully, you know, start getting at this problem. So that was very quick. And I know there's other folks on the webinar. I'm happy to answer questions. And maybe there's some other folks on the webinar that have similar experiences running a transfer station or a trash hauling business that would have some more to add.
Right. Do we have anyone with any further thoughts or questions or comments?
I just have one comment. I agree with Mark that we really need to make it more convenient. I know I already said that, but I looked up on the Call to Recycle site for the city of Portland, population of, you know, about 70,000 people. There are only 3 locations where you can drop off batteries. So we really have a long way to go to make it more convenient, so that, and if we make it convenient, then I think people will do the right thing.
When we were talking about this workshop and putting this together, we did also hear, so we have Call to Recycle that accepts batteries, and it also looks like Staples stores are taking batteries and recycling them as well. So that's another place that might be a little more accessible to the public. We have a lot of sheets that we'll be sending out in an email after this with a lot of different information that we found, some from the DEP, some from other like energysaver.gov, and then the information for Staples. We'll go ahead and send that out to everybody as well. Maybe we can just put that word out there until hopefully we can get a better plan in place.
Yeah, but just one thing on that, and again, I want to take up more time, but I started having some discussions with our local fire departments and our fire chiefs, and you know, I think, and there seems to be some interest in having fire stations, a lot of which are manned 24/7, 365, be drop-off locations for batteries. These folks are obviously well trained. You know, they're able to manage these, and they have a vested interest in, you know, not having more fires at the landfill or at the MRRA or at the transfer station. So there seems to be some interest in that in our area anyway. I'd like to see if that can be expanded on, perhaps.
Were there any other questions or comments at this point?
Yeah, I have a comment.
Okay.
One thing that I've noticed is that enclosed batteries, like batteries that are, you know, basically enclosed in, let's say, like a leaf blower or something like that. Like that seems to be something that I notice a lot, like over at my scrap metal pile and stuff like that, and in the packers, because people, you know, can't or too lazy to get the battery out. You know, you have to like take screws out, as well as like battery backups for the computer, the lead acid in there. That's a big one as well. So I think that's, you know, he commented on the fire station. Maybe that's something they would be willing to work on. I mean, we always offer to help take those batteries out and whatnot, but you know, a lot of the times they try to sneak them through, and before you know it, you're picking them out. You know, that's just one thing I've noticed.
Right. Do you have any other thoughts or comments?
We're going to hear from Call to Recycle next, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, good. Because yeah, I very much want to hear if Call to Recycle takes single-use or alkaline batteries. I thought the answer was no, but and I think that's the answer for Staples too. But if I'm wrong, so much the better. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, I Staples does take the single use alkaline, I believe. When we did our research, we did see that. So if we have no further discussion or comments up to this point, we can just move right along. I don't think anyone will be sad if we end early.
Just real quick, there's I don't know if people are following the chat, but there's a few things in the chat.
Right. Right, yeah, so in the chat here, Randy has posted, it's called Serba Solutions. Looks like they're talking about alkaline. And then Liam posted that also North Coast. Oh, North Coast maybe does the like the larger industrial related batteries.
Yeah, I think Serba's solution is a good one, but it's very expensive. It's
Okay.
you know, it's like $70 for a box the size of, you know, a smallish box. So
Okay.
single use, I'm sorry to keep harping on this, and I'll stop now. Thanks.
No, single use is definitely, it's hard. All right, well, I guess we will go ahead and turn the time over to Mark Stedman, who is the representative here in Maine for Call to Recycle. So go ahead, Mark.
Good morning, Jessica. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, I think we can.
So I'm going to, when I flip my camera on, I was literally, have no idea why. You know, this is technology. I was flipped upside down.
Oh,
So
no.
Yeah, all right, so let's just see. I'm going to turn my camera on. Am I flipped upside down to you all?
You are.
No idea why. My camera has not been moved. I don't have any animals. So I'm going to save you all the pain, and we're not going to look at Mark upside down.
And blurred.
All right, so let's just jump right into it. First of all, Catherine, great job. I think that, you know, this is an area that has been affecting our lives for a long time. Like, we just haven't, there hasn't been you know, a spotlight on it for various reasons. I think that the induction of EVs into the market, you know, the big push there, current administration's push for electrification, and all of the fires that we're reading about at transfer stations. You know, the one we're working on right now, that it's just off the coast of Alaska on a in a shipping container vessel that's sitting in the water for remediation there. I mean, this is going on all around us, and I think the more educated we are, about batteries in general, particularly lithium ion, because they're going to be around. They're not going anywhere. And then just basic housekeeping. How do we manage them, in our own homes, and then the larger projects, and how do we keep them out of Mark's landfill, right? Because we don't want them to end up going to the landfill. So with that, I've got a presentation for you all. We'll go through, and then listen, this is there's no format here. So if anybody's got any questions, just jump in. I can't necessarily see the chat as we're going through. So if you've got a question, just interrupt me. So with that, let me grab. It's all set. And so do you need to, I don't typically use Zoom. Jessica, do you have to give me the steering wheel? Or I can share my screen. Can you all see this? Can you all see that?
I haven't seen it come up, but it should be open for you to go ahead and share your
Right, great.
screen. So, yeah.
All right. Can you all see that?
Mm,
Doesn't sound like you can.
Not yet.
All right. Let's see. Let me see what this allows me to do. Share. Again, apologize, guys, because I do not use Zoom. So sounds like I need to learn how to use it in the future.
Don't worry, Mark, that was my first time too, so it's a little tricky
did
if you have
exactly-
multiple screens.
Great job. Okay, here we go. Let's see. How about that? You see it?
It's working on it. Yes, we've got it.
Right. All right. So I'm going to start it. Here we go. Okay. Can you see one? Tell me what you're seeing. One screen. You got a split screen. What are you seeing?
I think we're seeing your presentation of it, but we can still see like what it shows the presenter, but we can still see it. So we should be good.
Yeah. It's just got to, you know what? We're just going to go with that. It's got a preview.
It looks good to me.
So we're going to get this is great material. We're going to make this happen. So, we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about how to safely collect and how batteries, batteries and battery cells, single cells, right? And also battery containing devices. Okay. Just a little bit of background on, first of all, let me introduce myself. I'm sorry. We got to jump right in. My name's Mark Stedman. I am a regional program manager with Call to Recycle. I'm actually based in Detroit. I've been in the industry now, specifically battery recovery, battery recycling industry, going on 8 years. My background is long-standing history with waste management and sustainability, solid waste, recycling. So spent a lot of time in MRFs, and flowed over into batteries and electronic recycling. And so that's my background. You all mentioned CERBA. I actually just came out of CERBA. I was with them for a handful of years, and we'll talk a little bit about, that wasn't part of my presentation, but I can explain what it is that they do specifically with alkaline and recovery, etc. So Call to Recycle. Call to Recycle was founded back in the mid 90s, and it birthed out of the battery bill that was passed that came from the US EPA's recognition of mercury in the environment, heavy levels of mercury, right? And so they drilled down, and as they drilled down into it, they found that a lot of the culprit for that mercury culprits were the battery manufacturers. So put the manufacturers on notice. They pushed legislation, and a law was passed. So manufacturer responsibility was put in place, and they all came together and said we need a arm to function as recovery, communication, training, education. And so Call to Recycle was birthed out of that. There are currently a handful of programs that are legislated in the US. You know, some of the most notable, I know that you all have a program. One of your neighbors there, Vermont, Minnesota's got a pretty sustainable program. State of New York, we're seeing a lot come out of New York on fires lately, just because of the concentration of population and the concentration of e-bikes and scooters, right? We just rolled the program out into the District of Columbia. So a little bit about, you know, when you all probably think of Call to Recycle, you may have seen these boxes. So you all mentioned Staples. We have a collection program with Home Depot, with Lowe's. Best Buy is another program that's out there, and we're continuing to roll nationwide programs out. And the collection also comes from municipalities, whether it be a school or MRFs or household hazardous waste cleanup. So we touch a lot of different areas, and specifically where Maine is concerned, there is, and I'm going to pull a slide up at the end of the presentation that's going to show you all numbers for the state of Maine for 2023. But there are materials packaging in place that you all can utilize for your particular sites. And like I said, we deal with private as well as public entities. We also provide the training and the education that's needed. We've got education materials, videos, etc., that we can support with. But these are just a few of the packaging options that we have, and we can talk more about that as we go along. So let's just talk about current state. So current state, you all can see here that, and this is current state of US. We recovered 8.1 million pounds of batteries. Now that is across all the battery families, chemistries, right? So you've got single use, which would predominantly be alkaline batteries, and then your lithium ion, your nickel metal, your NiCad, and your lead acid. To capitalize on something that Catherine said earlier, the reason that lead acid is so sustainable is because, like she mentioned, the UBC program and buyback. You know, here in the state of Michigan, we're a bottle bill state, right? So it's pretty entrenched within the populace that, oh well, I'm not going to throw my can away. I can take it to a grocery store or a corner store, and I can get that 10-cent deposit back. The same holds true with lead. Lead has been in batteries it's been around longer than the other chemistries. And a program was put in place long ago to recover lead acid batteries. And to Catherine's point, they are very simple. there's really only three elements. There's the plastic, as she mentioned, the HDPE covering, there's the lead, and then there is the electrolyte slash acid, which all can be recovered and reused. So of the lead acid, particularly in the automotive sector, almost 100% of the battery can be recovered. So we'll move on. Hang on, let me just, it's doing something funky. Do you all see that fall away? So we're going to talk a little bit about safety. So I've got a video here, fingers crossed that it's going to work. That is a lithium ion battery, typically what you would see out of a laptop. You can see something you don't want to do. You can see those push pins in it. And let's see if we can just. Did you all see that? Did you see that okay? Okay, so as Catherine mentioned earlier, when there is a thermal event, what makes lithium ion batteries so volatile is that they are, as I think Catherine, you may have mentioned this, but they're an oxidizer, right? So the first line of defense in controlling a lithium ion thermal event is controlling the heat, because at the hottest, even with a small lithium cell, it will burn close to 2000 degrees, right? And we all, I mean, you can all surmise that if something's burning at 2000 degrees, even at 10, 15 seconds, it's pretty much going to consume everything around it and ignite everything around it, as we saw from the event that Catherine showed us. So they're extremely volatile. And as Mark mentioned, right now, what fire departments are doing is they're particularly in EV fires, when there's a when there's an EV that's on the side of the road that's been involved in an accident and it has involved the battery pack, they're putting lots of water on it to knock the heat down. Now, water will not put out a lithium ion fire, but it will control the heat, which helps prevent, consuming everything else around it. So very volatile, very quick energy. And with the case of MRFs, Catherine showed us that fire nozzle, there's companies out there that have been popping up. One that's pretty well known goes by the name of Fire Rover, and they monitor facilities and installations 24 hours, as you would, as say 911 does its airways for emergencies. So they can spot through their devices on site. They can spot a thermal event before it happens because they can detect the heat. And then they have those cannons, those water jets to subdue the fire. I think the biggest issue right now that we're seeing, and particularly in MRFs and transfer stations, is detection, right? Because we know that people are going to put the batteries, because they don't know that, to the point earlier, there aren't sustainable programs for batteries right now, like they are with UBCs, your aluminum cans and lead acid batteries and plastics and cardboard. So what people do was they'll put, if you've got a single stream, they'll throw the battery into the into the single stream container. It ends up on the sorting floor, and it somewhere, you know, with a 50,000 pound loader, when it crushes it, well, you're going to have a thermal event right on the floor, which ruins all that material, or it's going to get crushed somewhere in the process going up the belt within those teeth. So detection is a really big push, and there's a lot of efforts being made through AI and other avenues to be able to help identify, even in a truck situation. So let's move on a little more about safety. You know, as more and more mobile products are being used in toys, embedded in electronics, you know, they're flooding the market, right? And so we don't know what to do with them. Our first thought again is to put them in our recycling containers. They're very hard to define. You know, and as that battery power increases, and we're starting to see that, those high watt hour batteries that we're seeing, and it was already mentioned earlier in the blowers and outdoor power equipment, we're going to see more events. Life with an outdoor power equipment is a lot shorter in that battery based on use, particularly in the commercial side of the industry. So we're going to see more and more of these batteries come back into the waste stream. Counterfeit batteries is a big issue, right? So we are seeing, you know, particularly in the area of the scooters and the bikes. That's why we're seeing a lot of the fires that we are seeing, not to mention the overcharging and improper handling, and also reuse of batteries, because people just don't know. But counterfeit batteries, meaning that they're poorly manufactured. They typically come in from an overseas supplier, and they're not held to the same regs and specifications that batteries that are made here in the US are. So just a side note, if you're, you know, like looking to invest in an e-bike or a scooter, etc., I would take the time to dig a little bit deeper, find out where the battery is made, and to look at that side of it as opposed to just to the product. So let's talk a little bit about education here. So lithium-ion batteries, Catherine already mentioned this. They are extremely prominent and prevalent in our industry. They come in two forms. There's primary, which is a one-time long life battery. Typically, we see those that come in coin cells or buttons. They're also known as. They're typically in our fobs and in things that last a really long time. And then there's the lithium ion, which is the rechargeable, which we all have in our laptops and our cell phones, in the outdoor power equipment and power tools. They can vary in size. They've all got unique markers. Typically, they are printed with lithium somewhere on the device. And just as an aside, and I think it's here on on my next slide. So if you can see this recycling emblem here on the left, just below the DeWalt battery, and on these others, that recycling logo came out of that battery bill, and that is what we do and manage. So with the manufacturers, we work close with the manufacturers, who are the stewards to the program, who pay into the program. Again, we are a nonprofit, so the manufacturers pay into the program for a sustainable recovery and recycling of their batteries. So let's keep moving. Any questions so far? Okay, so we'll just keep moving. So and regarding education, we've got all kinds of printed material, videos. We provide training for sites so that they can be CFR trained in order to package product properly and under the reg. We provide signage and the mailings, as I mentioned, safety materials and training. You'll see here in the next slide just some examples of that we can provide. This the Avoid the Spark was actually a program that came out of the state of California just to push for the public to be aware that the danger of batteries, to keep them out of the landfill, and to bring more knowledge to recovery. So I mentioned high energy batteries. So this is where we're seeing them, right? And this list grows daily. We're going to see with the inception of the higher energy batteries, and the chemistries are changing. There is a lot of value. Catherine mentioned earlier that there is a lot of value in the raw materials of the battery. In most lithium ion chemistries of old, it was NMC, which was nickel, magnesium, cobalt. You all probably have all read the basis for mining cobalt. A lot of companies are getting away from cobalt as they experiment with new chemistries. We're starting to see a lot of sodium sulfite based lithium, and I think we're going to continue to see changes there, because and again, a lot of that is being driven by the EV manufacturers, those that are making the packs for automotive, whether it be the Samsung, LG Chem is a big manufacturer. Then you've got Kettle, and again, they're pushing for low cost and length of time on the runtime. So I think we're going to see a whole lot more of these as the industry grows and changes. So we do have a product that packaging that is a special permit. The permit number there is there listed. It will take, it's permitted up to a 26.5 pound battery. And this packaging specifically was designed for e-transit, e-bike, scooters, but it also fits that outdoor power equipment, power tool, power cleaning products. It's an all-in-one, prepaid. So the recycling and everything is all built into that particular package. So this is something that I'm sure that you all have all seen. DDR, according to the DOT, damaged, defective, and recalled batteries. In the thermal events, in fact, Catherine, you did a good job on explaining this. Thermal events show up in all different forms, right? For example, the overseas container that was on fire in the container ship that I spoke about in Alaska, we haven't determined cause, but there's a brand new batteries in the form of modules. So something happened in the manufacturing process, right? And then a lot of it too, we're seeing is overuse. So just as an aside, we are probably the most overcharging society on the planet. And what I mean by that is we, when we have, our device gets down, we start to have that what's called in the EV world range anxiety, right? We have charge anxiety. Oh, my phone is down to 20%. I better plug it in. One step further, when we come into our offices and we take our laptops home every day, we plug them in and we leave them plugged in, and all that overcharging, it creates weakness in the battery, right? Which can lead to a thermal event. And eventually, if the device outlives the battery, something will happen, right? So my advice always is, the sweet spot on a cell phone is somewhere around an Apple, and the other cell phone companies will never tell you this, because they're all about replacing the phone and because there is no replacement battery for them currently. But when it gets down to about 8 to 10%, that's when I recommend plug it in, right? Get it fully charged and then unplug it. Same thing with your laptop. When you come into your office, if you plug it in, monitor where, at that full charge, unplug it if it doesn't shut off automatically. There are charging devices that do that, particularly with power tools, but just something that, to think about. And something I also recommend is not charging our cell phones next to our heads, which most of us do next to our bed, right? So, and we laugh about it, but, we don't want to be that one where we have a thermal event, right next to us, while we're asleep. So, okay, so managing those DDR, we do have packaging that meets most, if not all, of those needs up to the 55-gallon drum, as well as if you've got a EV pack, a full pack that has come out of a Tesla, was mentioned earlier, or another EV model. We do have packaging that can meet those needs and to transport it safely. We talked a little bit earlier, that was mentioned earlier, about fire suppression. So right there in Maine is a company called Cell Block. Cell Block is a fire retardant. It's represented there in those bags. We partner with Cell Block. Cell Block is a packaging, it's a fire retardant in transportation, not so much in a MRF setting, unless you're sorting batteries, say on a table, and you can surround the burning battery with the Cell Block, which we did at Cerba. But literally what happens, it's made out of recycled glass, and what happens is when there's a thermal event, the glass is injected with a gas, and I don't know all of their minutia and their behind the curtain science. But what happens in the event is it melts around the device, the glass does, and it contains it and puts it out. And again, comes in all different forms. It comes in bulk, but we provide it in all of our DDR packaging. So a little bit about labor. This is part of the discussion that we have all heard about and is not really talked historically about. But as labor has become very difficult and a challenge, really across all industries, it's becoming more and more difficult, to find those that are in the industry that can help support, recovery. And historically, labor has been an intense part of battery recovery. Catherine, you mentioned that. I appreciate just aside all the foundation that you laid. But so typically, you know, it's been very labor intensive. And now that there's been some innovations in packaging, particularly, we're going to talk about one of those packaging options that is solely a product that was birthed out of called Recycle, the One Drum. And what the One Drum allows is this: it's a special permitted packaging option, and it allows for commingled batteries to go into the product that are not terminally, they do not have to be terminally protected, right? So in this case, you know, you're basically building with the cell block that I mentioned, you're basically building what I like to call a lasagna. And so you've got a layer cell block, and then the batteries, and then cell block, etc., to the top, and then it's finished off with cell block. It can be shipped safely under DOT regs, and it satisfies their requirements. So just another there's another option out there to be able to grab more chemistries and you know, to be able to recover more. So batteries, as I mentioned, they're not going anywhere. They are key to electrification in our economy, you know, and however, we really have to succeed in safely recovering. You know, logistics has been a challenge. It's getting better. But we are here, you know, to help meet those goals. And we are seeing, you know, a massive battery growth across all sectors, and we're going to continue to. So, you know, we're here to support you all in your efforts to recover batteries. There's my information. If please do not hesitate to reach out to me, and we can talk we can do a one-on-one, and I can explain more of this in detail. So I hope that this has been beneficial. And with that, I will stop sharing. Let's see. Okay. So, any questions?
I just had one. Want to thank you for speaking first, but do you think people put the batteries in the trash because they're afraid of their data being like, someone's going to get my phone, I'm just going to throw it away, it'll be safer there, that kind of stuff?
So say that one more time, Vic. If their data as
So like all
attached-
these phones and whatnot are ending up in the landfill and at EcoMaine, are people just afraid that whatever they have on their phone is going to get into the wrong hands? If it's phones that are the big problem, which we don't know. I think Vinny said sometimes people leave them in the equipment, you know, like your
yes.
blower and stuff, because I ain't taking that out. Just throw it in the trash. They don't know any
Sure,
better, I
sure.
guess. I don't know.
Sure. Yeah, well, you hit on it. So I think that it's twofold. One, there are not clear, sustainable programs for phone recovery. I know that as the example that Apple has done a concerted effort to take back phones, right? So I think data is truly an issue, you know, data leak of the personal information, but also people just not knowing what to do with their batteries, and they're getting mixed signals. So Batteries Plus, as an example, Batteries Plus will take back batteries, but I don't know what they are, you know, communicating in the state of Maine, but I know that in other states. Did someone make a comment?
No, it was my phone ringing. Sorry
Okay.
about that.
No worries. So, so Batteries Plus for a while was communicating that one-time use, which again predominantly, if not exclusively, alkaline batteries are not recyclable. Just throw them in the trash. Well, the confusion comes with, can an alkaline battery technically go into the landfill without causing any fire hazard, probability is probably, 90% plus chance of it not having a thermal event, right? Just because of the nature of an alkaline battery. However, problem is education. People see a battery, they don't necessarily know the difference between, chargeable, rechargeable. And so, they end up throwing all the batteries away, right? So I think, I kind of went down a rabbit hole, but I think you're spot on. I think it has to do with education, people just not knowing. And the data wipe concern. So I don't know if that answered your question or not, but
Kind of does, but it brought up another question. You mentioned like a AA battery. I know these blink cameras for one. Now you're buying batteries that have to have lithium in them. And if there are no charge left, are they safe to throw in the trash? Or now do these have to go to you instead of wherever? It's like a energizer, but it's got a little piece of lithium in there.
yeah. So let me focus on a couple things that you said. One, you mentioned AA. So AA is just the size of the battery. It doesn't represent, a AA doesn't represent the chemistry, right? Because you can take, you can go to Home Depot or Lowe's or wherever, and you can buy a AA size in the lithium ion form, in NiCad, in nickel metal, or in alkaline, right? So to answer your question, they should all be recycled, and recovery can happen all together if it is packaged properly. And where that starts is with whatever that entity that you represent, right? So if you represent, Mark was on earlier and I noticed his tag that he's a mayor. So if you whatever you represent, if you starts with, I think, with education, and then instituting a program in whatever recovery arm that you currently have. So household hazardous waste typically is a good place to capture, and we're talking about communities now, is typically a really good place to recover batteries that are accumulated. And so with that, the model of it, like I mentioned, the one drum is a great option to be able to recover all those batteries and at one time, at that time, so there's not double work. And then once it's full, it's sealed, packaged, we pick it up. So I think it goes back to education and knowledge.
Sorry, Mark, I had to step away for a second.
Marty, I'm sorry. Marty, I called you Mark. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I think I probably stepped away at the exact wrong moment. That's the way it goes as
no,
an mayor.
Well, if you got a question, by all means, please ask.
So could we could put household or alkaline single use in this one drum? And if that's true, how do we get one of them?
So if I'll put, well, let's see. I think Jessica, you've got my information. So if you can, I don't know if you've sent that out to everyone. But
it's on the screen here. Yeah.
Yeah, you still have it on the screen, so.
Yeah, happy to talk to you about that, and I can help you make that happen. So let's see if I can pull that back up if you all want. If that would be helpful. If you want to pull my
Yeah, we're still, I think you still have shared your screen with us, so we are still looking at your presentation, that last page.
I mean, we would need a bunch of those 1 drums. We get tons of people want to do alkaline batteries.
Yep, so we can put together a program for you, Marty. And happy to talk to you more about that.
Okay, good, cool, thank
So
you.
now let me clarify something that we talked about the packaging and the state of Maine being a legislated state. There is packaging that fits into the program, and then there's packaging that does not apply to the program. So the 1 drum is something that is outside of the program. So there is an option to commingle single use and rechargeables together. However, those batteries need to be individually bagged in order to ship in the packaging that has been approved for the program. The 1 drum is outside of that program. However, we can set up a program for it. So happy to talk to you more about that, Marty.
Yeah, okay, yeah, we're not gonna get people to put batteries in individual bags.
Well, right, and the collection typically, if you go to a Home Depot, Lowe's, Staples, what you see is the packaging that those batteries are being dumped into. The Lowe's and Staples, Home Depot have to make sure before they ship it that it is packaged properly. So they go through those containers and make sure that there are no exposed terminals. But if someone brings in, a Ziploc bag of commingled batteries, those and they are one-time use, then those stay as they are because they do not need further taping. However, a lithium-ion battery, because there still is charge in it, even though it may be at end of life, can still cause a thermal event if it creates that circuit by touching another light battery. So, any other questions?
I've got a couple of them, if that's okay.
Oh, please,
this
Mark.
is-
Please.
Yep. So the first one is, so we talked a little bit about the lead acid and the fact that, for example, if you go buy a new battery for your car, you go to the auto parts store, you buy a lead acid battery, you get a $10 core charge for an old one that you bring in. And that, I think one of the reasons that works is that the product that the battery is in typically outlasts the battery, and it's wise to replace the battery. But what we're finding in a lot of these, for example, these hand tools, the drills, the cordless skill saw, whatever it is, typically when the battery goes dead, you throw the whole thing away because it makes more sense just to go buy a new product with a new battery.
Right.
So you don't have
Right.
like a battery store where you could say, hey, if I take this battery in, you could set up some program where you get this rebate. Is there any discussion about changing that and I'm assuming this is an economic decision by manufacturers are saying that, hey, the cost of that product is in the battery, not in the product itself. Is there any move to get away from, the battery's dead, throw the whole thing away and buy a new product with a new battery? I don't know if I made that clear or not, but
yeah, you did. And it's a great question and a great point. So I think that what we're seeing is that, I'll use the outdoor power equipment industry as an example. So, there's been a really big push, as we mentioned, in the electrification of lawnmower, trimmers, blowers, etc. And most of those products are designed with a rechargeable lithium ion battery. They and their hopes are that, you know, if you go through, you know, several, they make those interchangeable. So if you go through several batteries in the life of that lawnmower or whatever the device is, you know, there's a benefit. I think the problem so I don't know that they're necessarily, they in that side, in that world, are necessarily looking at an alternative for you know, for the recovery of the batteries, other than pushing to recover the battery at end of life through their own accountability with recovery. But I think that, and I may not be answering your question, but I think that the real challenge, Mark, is with battery embedded devices, right? So you've got, and you can fill in the blank. I mean, they're, you know, toys, outdoor lighting, etc., have got an embedded device, or excuse me, have an embedded battery in the device. How do you effectively and cost effectively remove that battery from that device? And it's extremely expensive. You know, you can imagine. Amazon is a great example on accumulating returns of that sort of material. And quite frankly, you already hit on it. It is cheaper to replace the product than it is to, and that's just the nature of, I think, of our culture. You know, it's cheaper to replace the product than replacing the battery. And so because I think that we have somewhat designed ourselves around a throwaway world, and you know, so that is a big problem. So what's left are these electronics that have got an embedded battery. How do you recycle the battery effectively and get the value, and recycle the electronics? But then you got to deal with all the other things, silicone and plastics and all the other parts. So it really is a challenge, and we're seeing a heavy accumulation of that material that people are seeking out sorting. There are companies out there that are coming online that are beginning to manage some of those end of life products, and I think as they do, eventually it'll be cheaper to recycle, leading to, the hope is to lead to a economic rebate, if you will, or benefit back to the consumer. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I think we are I liken this whole world of electrification as, you know, we're on the way to the Super Bowl, but we are just driving to the game. We haven't even gotten to the field yet. So, you know, with the onset of the movement of EVs in the industry and the push for those, I think as the EV industry goes, and the consumer electronics, as well as power equipment, we're going to see the shift, particularly in lithium ion. I think that we're going to see the cost of it come down as they find more sustainable chemistries, because typically it's been very expensive to process because of the raw materials that are involved, and also the cost of the technology to be able to separate all those things out. Because I liken it to, and I'll just throw this in there, just from an educational perspective. So if you take your battery out of your phone, and you were to cut it open, right? You don't want to do that because you would have a thermal event. But if you're able to separate out those, when you open it up, there's just this black, sticky, what's known as black mass. I liken black mass as a cake mix. right? So within it, you've got all those raw materials that make up that the battery materials, the anode and the cathode. And so all those come together, right? So it's very expensive and takes an enormous amount of energy to separate out those chemistries, the cobalt from the nickel, from the magnesium, from the coppers, et cetera. So I think as we see the technology better and become more efficient, I think we're going to see more, particularly on the industrial side. That's where we'll see it first on recovery, and then some rebated numbers associated with that. And there are currently, if you take the time to sort out, for example, if you would take the time to sort out a drum of lithium ion batteries, there is value back to you as the producer and collector of those materials. However, however high or low based on the LME, the London Metal Exchange, where lithium is, et cetera. There's a formulas based on that. So I don't know if that helped, but long-winded answer. I hope that was beneficial. So
well, your answer actually leads right into my second question I had and that is just it's mostly from a curiosity standpoint, but these batteries that we are collecting, that we're able to collect, particularly again, we'll focus on the lithium ion ones because that's the primary concern. Is when we collect them, we put them, because we do participate with Call to Recycle. We put them in the box, we ship them out. Where are they going? Where are the recycling facilities in the
great
US?
question.
I
So
don't, we know we're sending them somewhere, and I'm just kind of curious what's happening to those in the US. Is there one facility in the US recycling these, multiples? How does that process work?
Great. That is a great question, Mark. So one, if you want to know the more detail, you can go to our website, and I apologize, I don't know exactly where to point you at the website, but it's on our website, and I can find the link and I can send it to Jessica to send out. But we have a full page of all of our partners. All of those partners are R2 V3 vetted. So we vet all of our downstreams, meaning they are audited, both from a reporting standpoint and how they record and capture to their physical facilities on where the material is going. So, if you look at, because we are a nonprofit, we provide all of that information. There's full transparency. So specifically, where is it going? So lithium ion ends up at one of Cerba's facilities, or Ascend Elements, another lithium ion processor. Redwood Materials, you probably read about and heard about Redwood Materials, based out in Nevada, and then Lifecycle. And some of these, we deal with all of them, but some we deal more with others just because of pricing, logistics. And then there are NiCad, end-of-life NiCad processors, which Cerba happens to be one of those. We also, alkaline, again, there are several end-of-life processors, Cerba being one that processes alkaline end-of-life. So we vet those out. And then we also work with aggregators who, like with your box, it will go to an aggregator depending on what it is, and they will open it up, sort out every battery in that container. And right now it is very labor intensive. And I mentioned AI. We are seeing leaps and bounds now with AI development in sorting. And I think that we're going to see more of that, much more of that in the future. In fact, I think that we are probably getting close to, within a couple years out, of seeing AI sorting. So, with a MRRA, for example, and I've been in hundreds of them, And so with the MRF, there is technology as an example with plastics, where when the plastics are routed to their own stream and based on whatever form they're in, the program is able to read at such a high speed the type of polymer and then sort it accordingly. A lot of systems will do it with air. And so that technology is coming because I think for, with a MRF, it's all about speed, process, and getting that, burden depth down, and that material, valuable material that's sitting on that tipping floor, sorted, processed, baled, and then out to market. So it's coming with the development of AI, but it is labor intensive. And so we have sorters right now, for the most part, are all doing that by hand. They're all vetted out, again, R2, V3. So, and Jessica, I will provide you with that link in an email so you can send it out to the rest of the participants.
Great. Okay, great.
Yeah. Any other questions? I know I think we've probably come up on our time, but I just want to say I really appreciate the opportunity. I'm really well-versed on the manufacturing side and capture side on downstream. I'm fairly new to Call to Recycle, know the industry really well. So if I can be of any further assistance, I'm happy to, schedule a call with you. We can talk through your very specific situation. Or any further questions you have, do not hesitate, to reach out, and we can find some time to chat more. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mark. We'll just do a last call for any questions or comments before we wrap it up.
Mark, it's Marty again. I'll send you an email.
Great. Look forward to it, Marty. Thank you.
All righty. Well, I want to just take a moment to thank everyone for joining us today. And I think we've had a pretty good discussion. Hopefully we can move forward and figure out other ways to help spread the word and maybe educate a little more people in our area as what can be done with the batteries. Catherine and Mark, if you don't mind sharing your presentation, I can send it out if that's okay. So if that is okay with you, go ahead and send it to me and I'll send it out with all the materials to everybody. And again, we're so grateful that you joined us. Thank you, Catherine, Mark, and Mark for sharing your thoughts and your knowledge. And I think that's it. I guess until next time, everyone have a great day. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Jessica. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank
Jessica.
you.
Thanks.